Hello, everyone. I'm John Self, and for more than 27 years, I worked as a retained executive search recruiter across the mainland U.S., Alaska, and Hawaii. My international practice took me to Canada, the Republic of the Philippines, Australia, South Africa, and the Middle East, including Dubai and Abu Dhabi. Believe me, those were two incredible places to do work. I was employed by the United Arab Emirates Armed Forces Medical Center. At the start of my career, I was a crime writer, an editor, and an investigative reporter for the Houston Post. After a stint in public relations at Herman Hospital, which included serving as the first director of the hospital's acclaimed Lifeline helicopter ambulance program, I served as the national marketing director for Rocky Mountain Helicopters Aviation Medical Division based in Houston. I helped establish and implement the next 13 air ambulance programs from Los Angeles to Pittsburgh, Portland to Jacksonville, Florida. And that was one of the great rewarding parts of my career. And so I really enjoyed those activities. Hold on just a second. And we're just waiting for a few people to join here. So I've been very, very fortunate in my career. I've interviewed thousands of people, clinicians, faculty members, helicopter pilots. Now those guys could be really interesting, mechanics and executives across a multiple of different industries. I have seen a few really, really great interviews, a majority of good enough interviews, also known as average interview performances. In other words, it was good enough to get the job, and a few really bad ones. And believe me, the bad ones were painful. And when you cut them short, they were too long. Now, the reason for there's the disparity from the elite, which is a very small group of people, to the bad interviews, and it's not as small as the elite group, but it's unfortunately bigger than it needs to be. The reason for the disparity is that most people think they are good at interviewing. And the fact is, interviewing is one of the most unique forms of communication. Most managers and executives, unless they are kings of job hopping, will only interview 25 to 35 times in a career. And quite frankly, that's just not enough practical experience to achieve a high level of competence. Now, that is not to say you are from here on relegated to the middle of the pack. If you master the concepts of interviewing, adopt the tools that'll help you excel, and then practice some more. The majority of you who are now in the good enough category can move to the elite category. You can ace the interviews for the dream job that you've always wanted and excel in getting the best job offer for the position. And that is an important point. Yes, organizations have established wage and salary programs. They follow religiously. And during a period of time during the Great Resignation, there was this sense we can't get enough people, and so they did whatever they could to hire people, including offering perhaps more than they might ordinarily offer for a position. But now, with a slowing economy, most employers now are really focused on, on staying within the job range and being very disciplined, trying never to offer above the 50% range. Now, they will make higher offers. They will make some special deals if the applicant kill the interview, okay? If you really aced it, they really need you, they really want you, they think you will be indispensable, then all rules about the salary range are up for debate. But if you just do an okay job, no, you'll get an okay offer. Now, if you don't mind, I'll add some context to the importance of the interview and perfecting the interviewing skills. Now, this is very, very, very important. Something most career coaches just overlook or hadn't thought about. Let's examine 4 scenarios. First, you make it through the minefield that is the automated AI applicant sourcing. Yeah, they're doing that now. as well as the AI applicant resume screening, which is killer, to the interviews with the recruiter and then the screening team. You survive intense competition and you still don't get the job. 2, you get a job offer, but it is at the bottom of the wage salary range, a significant letdown from what you were expecting based on the relevant experience, current income, and scope of responsibility for the new position. The third scenario, after 6 months, you're eligible for a raise. They told you when they offered you the salary, it wasn't really great, but they offered you the raise, but they only give you the minimum increase. In other words, after taxes, pennies on the dollar. And then the fourth scenario, the economy slows, layoffs commence. You are notified you are among those who are being laid off, even though you have more relevant experience than those who are being retained. Now, one reason that you should invest the time and effort in mastering the job of the art of the interview, is that it is not about getting the job. The qualities and skills that help you get the job are the same as keeping your job, advancing your career, including increasing your compensation. So people think of job interviewing as, oh, it's just on the front end. Once I get it, I don't have to think about that again for a while. But that's not true, because the same things that go into making a great job interview are the same things that go into helping you get the best job, getting the best offer, and keeping the best job and getting the best raises. Now, at the base of each scenario is a critical element of mastering the art of the job interview: understanding your value. It is all about selling, or if you prefer, educating the employer your value. Now, the emphasis here shifts from, when you finish the job, the emphasis shifts from why should we hire you to why should we keep you to why should we promote you to why should we pay you more. Now, not selling your value is one of the most common issues with poor to mediocre interview performances, but it is also central to your ability to become an invaluable and indispensable member of the team. So if you leave today without remembering anything else, take note of this. To master the art of the job interview, you must begin with understanding your value. You must be able to communicate that information in a compelling, memorable fashion. And when you are asked, why should we hire you, or why are you interested in working for us, this is all about connecting your value with the needs of the prospective employer. In short, whether you call it selling yourself or educating the employer to the value of your value, it must be focused and tied to the employer's needs. Just like you can't submit a generic resume, you can't just show up and generically answer questions. And you can't expect them to take your answers and connect it to their needs. You need to do that for them. I've said this time and again. If you're in a job interview and you feel like you're answering the questions, but you're not selling how your value will benefit them, then you are allowing them to do the math, and they will get the wrong answer. Now, the second most important thing is you must remember this one rule. The worst possible time to decide what you are going to say, is when you're asked about your value. When you are, and what you're going to say about asking about your value is that you are sitting in front of the interviewer. That's if you're thinking about what you're going to say and that's where you are, you've screwed up. So I will check to see if we have any questions here. I think we're fine. Let me bring that up. Sorry about that. Okay, so as I said, when you're sitting in front of the job interviewer, that's the worst possible time to be thinking about your answer. This ties in with Rule 3. Preparing for a job interview requires a lot of work. It is part of an integrated process. It begins when you recruit your references. Now, I say this all the time and people go, what? I don't worry about my references unless I think I'm going to need them at the end of the interview. And that's the worst possible time to be recruiting references too. If you use the references as part of preparing for the interview, as mastering the art of the job interview, ask them about your strengths and your weaknesses. When you say, will you be my reference? They say, yes, happy to do that. Say, before we move on, I'm going to ask you to give me an assessment of how you think I performed for you. If it was a boss, if it was a colleague, what was your observations of my performance and how I dealt with people? Or if it's a subordinate, was I a good boss? What were my strengths and weaknesses? And you have to insist that people be honest with you. This is about helping you grow. And if you ask people to help you to serve as a reference and not asking you that kind of information, you're not going to grow. Because what they tell you will help you prepare. More importantly, it will allow you to craft answers to certain questions like your weaknesses or mistakes. It allows you to take them off the table during the interview to mitigate their potential negative impact if the referee does mention it in the reference. In the event so that's really important. Sometimes people say, "Oh, you were really great. I enjoyed working with you. I'll give you a good reference." Okay, that's great. And then during the effort, maybe they're having a bad day, maybe they were frustrated about something else, and the interviewer says, "Well, tell me about John's weaknesses." Well, he's really chatty, and he could chat up a brick wall, but I really liked him. Well, if you're not careful, and an organization doesn't like talkative people that could get you eliminated right there. So if you knew that might come up, you could then, during the course of the interview, particularly with the decision maker, say, one of my issues when I was an early careerist was that I was really chatty. My father used to say I could chat up a brick wall. Always try to put something self-effacing in, self-deprecating in, and then say, but let me tell you how I overcame that, because I had good mentors who pointed that out to me. And then I really learned to watch the table, to work the room, and pay attention to how people were reacting. And that helped me avoid being too talkative, talking too much, and not listening enough. And I really work on that, and I think I'm much, much better. Now, the second rule is be proactive in researching the prospective employer and the job. Now, this is why it's so important to have a professional network who can help you achieve advantage over your competitors. Yes, in a job interview, you have competitors. When you don't get the job, it's because a competitor beats you out. It's because a competitor did better than you did, because a competitor sold their value. And that can be very painful. One friend told me that it was a dream job. I wasn't his coach, but he had his dream job, and he didn't get it. And the guy who got it, this person knew him. He said, he's a jerk. He really treats his employees badly. I said, well, how do you feel? He said, I felt like the bully took my girlfriend to the senior prom. That's how I felt. And I said, you can't afford to let that happen again. Obviously, something that traumatic. So one of the things that you can do is build strategic networks that will allow you to focus on geographic areas and organizations within those areas to build a professional network. Now, the Dunbar rule, it's so named after Robin Dunbar, the British archaeologist, says you can only really manage about 150 contacts and produce a really effective, productive network or professional network. So if you only have 150 contacts, you really want to focus those contacts not on some real estate agent or financial services guy in Redwood, California, or Pensacola, Florida, unless those are two places you want to work. So be very disciplined how you build your network. Be very disciplined about the people you accept into your network. Some people, are able to segment people between my core Dunbar network and my network of other people that I communicate with. But anyway, it's really important to have that network. Why? Because it will allow you to prepare for the job interview in a way that gives you an advantage over your competitors. And if you're building it around the organizations in the regions where you want to work, you will more than likely have actionable intelligence that will help you understand the reason the job is open, understand the culture of the organization, and understand what the hurdles to success are. Now, the reason this is so important is that recruiters, and I used to be one, except we were guilty of some things. This wasn't one of them. Is that recruiters, both internal and search firms, are really notorious about what they don't know about a job or an employer, the hurdles to success or the culture of the organization, both of which both of which can be fatal if you do not comprehend their significance on the front end. Now, by the way, when you hear that someone has left an organization within the first 6 to 24 months to pursue other interests, the chances are very high, I would say astronomical, that the applicant did not understand the performance expectations, they weren't in alignment, or the culture of the organization was never fully comprehended. Now, if you think you know what they're asking for, or this is a job and I've been a CEO before and I know what to do, every employer has things that they want you to focus on. And if you don't understand that, if you don't ask a lot of questions around that and just go do what you're good at, that may be over here, they're over here, and that means you won't last very long. So it's really, really important that you understand that level of information, and you can get that information if you have contacts within your targeted organization or within the area that's closely aligned with your targeted organization. So it's very important today to practice what we call strategic networking, or networking 3.0, because that can help you be ready and become an elite interviewer. Now, the other thing is anticipate questions and then rehearse possible scenarios. Even the best, most experienced speakers on stage rehearse and rehearse some more for a presentation. I knew a speaker, he was an incredible keynote featured speaker at workshops and conferences around the world. And every time he went out to do a presentation, even if it is one he has done 20 or 30 times, before he departed his office, a couple of weeks in advance, he would allot, a couple of hours each week to practice his presentation. He's done it many, many times, but he has had an area in his office set up as a stage with a podium and or just open stage. And he would then screen. And so he would use his keynote or his PowerPoint, go through his presentation, experiment with different ways to say certain things, experiment with the timing. He was always looking for ways to make it better. He was always trying to refine his presentation. And that's really what you have to think about. That's why you rehearse for job interviews. A, because it helps you become acclimated to the issues that you really want to stress. But more importantly, it helps you think about how you want to present information. Because sometimes it's not what you say, but how you say it that can help you make an impact on the interviewers. There are certain performative elements in a job interview, and I know people say, "Oh, no. Oh, I don't agree with that," or I'm not a performer. This is business. It's a job interview. I'm just not going to do that. That's fine. You may not get the job. Probably won't get the job. That is great hot tea for my allergies. Sorry about that. No. So how you present your information is as important as what you say. So if you plan to move to that elite group of people who are competing for the best jobs, you must research, you must prepare, you must rehearse extensively. I want to invite you to download our free core and categorical interview worksheet at johngself.com. This is free. It's very self-explanatory, but if you do look at it and say, I'm not too sure where he's going with this, schedule a free call. Go to the bottom of our website, johngself.com, and click the Talk to John button. I'm happy to spend 30 minutes with you answering any of your questions. Now, interview preparation, this interview preparation system, core and categorical questions that we talked about that last week and a week before last. This will become an indispensable tool for your career advancement. Now, we're going to pause right now and answer any questions that you might have about interviewing. What's the difference between primary and secondary references? Okay. As a candidate, you may be asked by the recruiter or the employer, we want 3 references. Well, okay. Always give them 1 or 2 more than they ask for. Why? Because if somebody's out of town or incapacitated because of an illness that you may not be aware of, having a fallback reference makes it immediately available. People immediately then are able to get into the to the process much faster. But if you got one reference and then everybody else is unavailable, it can delay the job search. So I really want to encourage you to be sure that you give them a peer, a superior, a boss, somebody you worked with as a colleague, and a subordinate, and one or two more in that category. That's really, really important. That's a primary reference. What's a secondary reference? Well, if I'm interviewing you as a candidate for CEO, and I know that you were in a community of maybe 10 or 15 or 20,000, 30,000, and ran a manufacturing company, or you ran a hospital, or you ran a big not-for-profit, and I'm on the, and I'm telling my client that I think you're the right person, and they say, well, do your checks. I'm not going to take just the references you gave me, because more than likely, unless you're a putz, those are all going to be, fairly positive. Now, not knowing, you always want to ask your references what they're going to say in a very nice sort of way, because what you don't want is damning by faint praise. In other words, somebody says, "Oh, John's a really good guy, and he worked hard for us, but we didn't always achieve everything we wanted, but boy, he was a good heart, or he was a hard worker." That's damning by faint praise. Okay, so you want to know what they're going to say, so I may want a broader view, and so I may reach out and call people that I know or that I think you should know in a community, and just say, look, we're thinking about this individual. This is a confidential call. Please respect that. Is there anything you can share with me about this individual that might be helpful in making a decision? Secondary references are people that you might have worked with in the past, people that might have worked in your company, people that you might have worked with in community projects or whatever. Those, and people that might be able to share additional information. Secondary references are more commonly used in senior level C-suite searches, but keep in mind that employers are not limited to talking to just the people you provided. Okay, so a primary reference is a reference you gave them. Secondary reference is a reference that may know something about you and that the recruiter or the employer contacts you. So that's the difference between a primary and secondary reference. How do people verify your credentials? Well, when I first got started, you call the college, the specific college where they went, and you call the registrar's office, and somebody would then take time from their work and go look it up on the computer and say, yeah, this person graduated on this date. Now they use a clearinghouse association. So when you a lot of times, it can be a little bit more challenging to get the information they look at. Most of that kind of information is not referenced by your driver's license number, because that changes. It's not necessarily indexed by your date of birth, because several people by the name of John Self were born on May 6th. But you have one number that is specific to you, and that's your Social Security number. And some in the past, that's how they were able to verify your degree. You gave a Social Security number that brought your degree up instantaneously, and they were able to verify it. Don't fabricate your degree. Don't talk about honors and awards that you did not get, because that will come back to hurt you. But they use a clearinghouse now to verify degrees. Be sure that if you're in a professional association, like the American College of Healthcare Executives or the National Engineers, or there are tons of these associations that are aligned with specific professions, and a lot of those people have directories, and those directories, some of them have a summary of your career experience. Be sure you keep that up to date, and be sure that it's consistent with everything else that's out there. You don't want people to start second guessing your background, because the information that you're telling the organization is not consistent with other information that might be publicly available. Okay. Oh gosh, I wish I'd get $1 for every time this question came in. What is the best length for a resume? That we talked about that last week. It is not one page. If you've been out of school longer than that, say 3 minutes, a one-page reference, a one-page resume is probably not going to capture your experience, your accomplishments, and sell your value. Now, if you're a new graduate, this is your first job, you've never worked anywhere in the past, okay, a one page you can get away with it. But once you've had your second or third job, your resume is going to be 3 to 4 pages. One of the things, after about 10 years on your resume, just drop down and say previous assignments or previous positions. Put the name of the organization, the title, and the date. That's all you have to do. That way you can get more in on 3 pages of a resume. So, well, listen, we don't have any more questions, and so we're going to wrap up a few minutes early today. Thank you for joining us. We hope that you will be back next week. We're experimenting with time. We're trying to build an audience for this broadcast, and a lot of people see this on a replay on my channel, and other people will see it in another venue. So it's tonight we're doing the same broadcast live on TikTok, and the past 3 weeks we've had over 1,400 people show up each night. So that's probably our biggest venue. But we're big believers in YouTube, so we're trying to build a channel here. And so if you know people that are in the job market, they have questions, have them visit with us. We've been doing this at noon without much success. And so we're going to experiment next week with a different time, probably in the evening. And so we do LinkedIn at 7:30 in the morning. We've been doing YouTube at noon. We'll probably switch that off with Instagram and go Instagram at noon and YouTube at 7 p.m. at night, so to catch people after the workday. So we're still experimenting. Let us know what you think. Thank you for joining us, everybody. We hope to see you next week, and we'll announce the time as soon as we make a decision. Cheers, everybody.